Hello everybody and welcome to the 10th video in our series of videos on the Middle Ages. Today we'll be looking at life in the Middle Ages town. So as always, we begin with our learning outcomes. So at the end of this presentation, you guys should know what a charter was. Second, you guys should know the stages to becoming a craftsman. Third, you guys should know what a guild was and some of the benefits of being in the guild. And finally, you guys should know what the market and the fair were in a medieval town. Today we are going to look at the first of two videos on Middle Ages trading. So in this video we will start by looking at what trade was like in everyday life. So the vast majority of trade took place in towns. While some towns would have been established in Ireland with the Vikings like Wexford and Dublin and Waterford, new towns based off of the British model came to prominence in the country when the Normans invaded. In order for a settlement to become a town, it needed a charter from the king, or a royal charter was given to a person who wanted to set the town. Then the charter gave the town permission to have a town government, to hold markets and fairs, and to have their own courts. A good example in Wexford would be the town of New Ross, which was given its charter in 1207. The town was founded by William Marshall, who was one of the few lords who stayed loyal to King George during the events of the Magna Carta, which has been signed in 1215, which we looked at in a previous video. The town of Gorey received its charter in 1619 as well, just to show that the idea of charters extended even beyond the Middle Ages. The main people in these towns were merchants or traders, who we'll be looking at in the next video, and craftsmen. So craftsmen made and sold goods, and they could range from being bakers to carpenters to masons to blacksmiths to tailors and cobblers. However, all craftsmen had a similar path to becoming a craftsman. They began as an apprentice in their chosen craft around the age of 12 to 14. They would have worked in a workshop like this for a craftsman. You can see here it would have been the young person working in the corner. They would work for free for the craftsman, who would then have to give them lodgings and food. After about 7 years, they could become a journeyman, and the journeyman could go and work wherever he wanted or wherever he could get work, and he was paid by the day, which is how he got his name. Journée actually is the French for day, so journeyman was a man who was paid by day. But to become a master craftsman and set up his own workshop, the journeyman had to create a masterpiece. Now, this masterpiece would be judged by a guild. So a guild was generally it's an association of master craftsmen, so a group of master craftsmen from the same trade who ensured the high standards were maintained in their trade, so that no one was making shoddy things to give the trade a bad reputation. And if the journeyman's masterpiece was seen as good enough, not only would he become a master craftsman, but he would also become part of the guild. And the guilds would not only set the standards, but it also protected their members. So once you become that master craftsman, you've got the security of being a member of the guild. And some of those benefits would include, if a member became sick, they would be supported by the guild. So they would have an allotment of money whereby they could help somebody if they became sick. They controlled working conditions and hours to work so that people were to keep an even kind of playing field. They prevented non-guild members from selling competitive goods. So if you weren't in the guild and you were trying to sell these goods, the guild would step in and make sure that that person wasn't undercutting your business. And they would also pay funeral costs if a member died. Many of the trades would have also worked on the same streets, especially in larger towns or cities, which is how streets got names like Baker Street or Carpenter Street. Also, family names came from trades like Smith and Taylor. Now, every week in towns, a market would be held where people from outside the town would come to sell their produce, generally food and milk and stuff like that. It would be the farmers coming in from the manors and stuff like that, the freemen coming in from the manors who would be selling their produce. And then they would also buy the products that they needed, whether that be clothes from the tailor or shoes from the cobbler or utensils from the carpenter or the blacksmith or whoever would give them the utensils that they needed. Now, once or twice a year, large fairs would be held outside the town walls on a fair green where merchants and traders would come from near and far. And in our next video, we will be looking at these merchants and traders and the impact that they had on our lives, and how this trading network is really the foundation for the capitalist society which we operate in today. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. So you guys should now know what a charter was. You guys should know the stages of becoming a craftsman. You guys should know what a guild was and some of the benefits of being in the guild. And finally, you guys should know what the market and fair were. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys got something good from this video.